Quickly, moving on to the presentation. India's TAVI journey. 2012 to 2015, about 90 cases only special access. In 2016, we did about 85 cases by the time TAVI was approved in India. 2017 was about 200 cases, then 315, 18, 600. The number didn't jump because of COVID in 2020. 2021 was around 800, and then you can see that we are here in 2024, and we're expected to do about 2,500 cases this year. It's important to understand how many TAVIs that are going to be in the pool so that we will know how many of them will come back for us for coronary access. And it is important now. It wasn't for the last 10 years, but we are going to be seeing more and more cases with TAVIs in place with coronary artery disease. Now, any procedure which involves a technology in place has to be broken down into three parts. First, understand the anatomy, understand the technology, and understand how the technology interacts with the anatomy. So here we're talking about the core valve, and what you need to know is first the waist diameter for the various sizes available in the market today. You have the 20, 22, 23, and 24. Then you need to know the height of the skirt. It's usually around 13 millimeters for the core valve because you cannot go through the skirt and access the coronaries. And then you need to know the commissure height. See, the skirt is not a fixed skirt all around for the core valve. It goes as scallops, and there are certain areas it rises to 26. So if this 26 millimeter portion is front of your coronary ostia, makes it more challenging. Not impossible, just more challenging, as I will show you. Then you need to understand the anatomy where this core valve sits, as I explained earlier. And as you can see, you have the core valve in place. You have 1, the STJ, 2, the height of the sinus, 3, the leaflet length, because sometimes in bicuspids you have huge scallopy leaflets, and even though your skirt is lower, your leaflet can come nice and high and prevent you from reaching the coronary. And then you have the sinus of Valsalva width, and you have your coronary height. So for a diagnostic angiogram, the first tip is use a J-wire, get your Judkins catheter all the way down as you can, as far as you can, do a non-selective shot first, then get to the coaxial U. I really like this elevocranial because you can see the side of the valve frame and the left main, and then you just push it in and the rest is just routine. Now once you get comfortable with this, you can see from the fluoro on the left side that it's as quick as this most often. That's the J-wire going in, the catheter going in real time, and once you know where the C-tabs are and where your skirts are, you just pop it right in. So I think the amount of apprehension towards accessing a coronary through the core valve is more than an actual reality. So that's why I've had this run to show you how quickly we can actually get in there. Similar drill for RCA, catheter to the lowest point with your J-wire, then pull up until you're opposite the rice cusp. Sometimes because of the way the valve sits and how the cusp is, you don't have to selectively engage. You can just fill the sinus and you'll see a beautiful image of the RCA. So summarizing the tips for diagnostic, make sure that you're entering through the center of the crown and not around the frame. Use smaller catheters, that is JL3 and 3.5. Use the J-wire to help you get to the desired frame and then move it in. And depending on the angle of the aorta, especially in horizontal aortas, the RC, your life will be much easier if you use a multipurpose. If it is difficult to engage, just do a pigtail to understand the anatomy because this is new for you. And if it's an elective procedure and you find it challenging to engage, there's no point going and fidgeting around there with the valve in place. Get a CT. The CT will tell you where the anatomy is, how your access is, and make your life a lot easier. Moving on to PCI. The first patient I present is a 78-year-old who came to our ER with chest pain and cardiogenic shock. As every second counts, quick pigtail injection to see the RCA. Then get the first wire in and take wherever it goes. Wiggle it back and forth to make room, get some shots, peep where you want to be, and get another wire in. And once you get both your wires in, move the guiding into place a little more to engage. And then everything else is just routine PCI. This is all the way back in 2017. Now sometimes when there's little space between the frame and the coronary, I like to bring the stent all the way to meet the valve frame. It makes life very easy the next time you want to go in. But in this place, the sinus was really roomy, and I stopped with the left main stent at the coronary ostia as a routine PCI. So these are your final runs. The next patient is another 86-year-old with unstable angina and NSTMI. Am I going too fast? It's okay? Okay. So instead of just giving theory, I thought it's best I show you some of my cases because you can see the cannulation and you can see how repetitive and reproducible it actually is. So 86-year-old with unstable angina and NSTMI, ostial left main disease, short contralateral guide, it really helps in ostial left main disease. When stenting the ostial lesions, bring the coronary stent frame, as I mentioned, back to the valve frame. First, disengage. So the key is that you have a stent floating between the left main and the valve frame. So you don't want your guide to kink it, dent it, or dang it. So the most important thing is leave the wire in, move the guide back, then take your wire back last to prevent interaction between all these. So this is an 81-year-old with chest pain and EKG changes showing acute MI. So you've ended up a diamond too high. All you do is take the stiff end of the wire, this was radial, all you have to do is take the stiff end of the wire and just pop it out of the top diamond, go down one diamond, and then it enters beautifully. So you can just look at the image on the right. Once you're there, gently push to engage. It's quite repetitive for me, eleocranial to engage the left main, and then it's just routine PCI. You have the guide in, wire in, aspiration, drugs, stent, and you're all done. So post-TAVR ACS, another patient, but sometimes the anatomy is not as favorable as in all the previous cases, and it's just difficult to enter. Even if you see a previous stent, even if you see that there's commissural alignment, sometimes it's just difficult to engage. How many of us have struggled to engage a left main sometimes, even without a TAVR valve in place, right? So no patient is alike. No two patients are alike. So this is a nice technique called air mailing, where you take a JR4, so you have place inside the core valve frame, and you can turn it left and right to angle it how you want to. Get a guide liner, get a microcatheter. In post-TAVR coronary PCI, your two best friends are your microcatheters and your guide liners. Your guide extension, guide extension, guide extension. Because even while I'm doing coronary protection, I don't like parking the guide in the coronary. The guide liner is far more safer to leave in a coronary. So I find the biggest vessel, I leave the guide liner in there, and then I pull the guide back. So just like that, your guide liner, microcatheter. So you can airmail the coronary, wire supported by the microcatheter and guide liner. And you can see once you enter the coronary, then you move the guide liner through the valve frame. And that is the most pivotal step that you can do to engage the left main. You don't even have to move the guide. And once you're there, then it's just another LAD PCI. So this was another patient in 2021. You can see in real time engaging the coronary on the image on the left. And then it's not commissurally properly aligned. So you can see I'm twisting the catheter because I don't have commissural alignment. I'm wiggling it left and right. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to go around the scallop. And once I'm around the scallop, see, you can see the commissures are not aligned. Once I take the hard end of the wire, I pop the guide out, I twist it, I enter from the side. And once I enter from the side, you can see the lesion which is causing the acute coronary syndrome. The thing I do, the exact same thing with the guide. So not only it is reproducible. I did it with the diagnostic, took the diagnostic out, knew where I had to go in, went in with the guide, and here you can see how clearly I'm entering from the side in one of the most unfavorable or so-called unfavorable coronary access situations. And then it's all routine PCI, bifurcation, cutting balloon, stent, and that's before and after. So Medtronic has a really cool device called the Heartroid, and what you have to see here is you can see the scallops and you can see the anatomy of the valve, and you can see that I actually entered from the side here, if you can see the pointer. So these are the ideal scenarios and the not so ideal scenarios. So an ideal scenario is when you have the lowest point and the coronary right in front of you. You have the coronary lower, and the worst case scenario is when you have this huge scallop and the coronary in one of these three places. But even with this, you saw the previous PCI. It was quite straightforward. And this was a heartroid where you can see that we took a heart with a bicuspid anatomy with a long leaflet, intentionally implanted a valve with commissural malalignment or unalignment. I was trying to figure out what's the right word there. And you can see the scallop right in front of the coronary ostium. And then we tried engaging the coronary. So go forward, go left, enter the sinus, wiggle a little, and you can still cross. And once you enter, it's just routine PCI. So to summarize, coronary angiography and PCI after TAVR with a cold valve. Initial non-selective injection followed by selective. Use a J wire, use the stiff end of the wire to get to the right diamond you want to. For left coronary, you use half a size smaller, so 3.5. If difficult coronary, rail towards ostium, use your guide wire, balloon support, guide extension catheter as freely as you can to make your life easy. For the right side, JR4 guide, use an AR2 or an MP depending on the horizontality. If skirt is high, use MP to enter from above and you can rail it towards the ostium. Again, your coronary guide wires, your balloon support, guide extension catheters are your best friends. These are the data of coronary access and incidence of coronary artery disease post-TAVR. Some of the registries, you can see 35 in 1,000, 17 in 296, but even in almost, this is about 10,000 patients, you have a very high success rate of PCI post-TAVR. So to summarize, angiography and PCI in post-TAVR patients has a high success with both self-expanding and the balloon-expanding TAVs. For self-expanding TAVs, reduce catheter size by 0.5, leave wire in while retracting your guide to avoid interaction with the prosthesis, use guideliners and microcatheters to freely facilitate your PCI. And before I finish, don't forget to block your dates on January 16, 17, 18, 2025 in Bangalore for Sentient 2025. Thank you so much.